Alright, for this video I want to do a quick walkthrough of the Schedule 3 for Form 1040. And Schedule 3 is used to report additional credits and payments that were made during the year. So I'm not going to go through each line item in a lot of detail. I want to cover some of the ones that we very often see on Form 1040s. What you'll also find is there are a lot of really obscure ones that are included here, and they might apply to you given your tax profile, but in this case I just want to kind of cover some of the more popular ones. Now I do have additional videos which I'll link below that cover some of these forms. So for example, we're starting up here on line 1 with the foreign tax credit. So if you have foreign taxes paid or withheld, you would include a form 1116. Got a lot of videos covering how to prepare 1116, how to deal with carryovers and things like that. So check out the description below. I've got a lot of tutorials on those foreign tax credit forms. In this example, our taxpayer just had some foreign taxes withheld on some investment income, and so the taxpayer did include an 1116. These were dividends paid out of a RIC. So they've got 1,034 of foreign source dividend income, which had $310 of foreign taxes withheld, but given the FTC limitations, the only amount that he could claim a credit for in the current period was $229, so the difference is carried over, right? And so that frequently happens when you have foreign tax credit issues. Dependent care expenses on 2451. So this taxpayer doesn't have any children or dependents, so he's not paying for these types of expenses, so he has no credits. But I do have some videos covering how to complete 2451 and calculate the credit that you might be entitled to. Education credits on the 8863, so this would be the lifetime learning credit or American Opportunity Tax Credit. In this example, the taxpayer did include an 8863, but his income was too high effectively. So even though he had some lifetime learning credit eligibility here for some expenses, he ultimately wasn't able to claim any of it. So that's why we see 0 on the 8863 line 19 here. But again, I do have a lot of videos covering how to calculate the LLC or the AOTC, so check out those links below. Retirement savings contributions credit. So if you make a contribution to a retirement plan, right, or certain types of IRAs, you can actually get a tax credit for a certain portion of the amount that you paid in. Now there's a lot of eligibility there, right? Your income has to be below certain thresholds, but you would attach a form 8880 in order to calculate that credit. Residential energy credits on 5695. So this taxpayer didn't make any of those improvements, but I do have a lot of videos covering how to prepare 5695, so have a look in the description below. That's definitely a good way to try to get reduced tax liability by making those types of improvements to your home. Now, other non-refundable credits here. So Form 3800 is the general business credit. I've got some videos covering that with respect to the clean vehicle credit. So that's also reported on the 8936. So if you bought a Tesla, or if you bought, one of those qualified Ford vehicles, there's a lot of vehicles that qualify for this clean vehicle credit. Go ahead and have a look at the 8936 examples I've got below and see if you qualify for that. Mortgage interest credit. So if your income is below certain thresholds and you are paying mortgage interest during the year and it's one of these qualified mortgages, you can get a tax credit for a certain amount of interest that you paid in during the year. So I've got a video on that, which I'll put a link to that below also. Let's see what else we've got here. So qualified electric credits, alternative fuel property credits, right? A variety of different types of green initiatives here. So if you have, an investment in one of these types of pieces of property, you might be able to get a credit for the amount that, a portion of the amount that you paid, that is. All right, so let's have a look at page 2. All right, so page 2 is other payments and refundable credits. So the more common ones that we see, certainly the 8962 on the premium tax credit. So if you found that in completing the 8962 you didn't get enough of the advance credit, you can get the difference made up here on line 9. I've got some 8962 videos. I'll put links below for them as well. Amount paid with extension. So Historically, if you made it a payment with your extension, it would just be separately stated down here in the payments section. So, for example, you can see on line 26, we have a line item for estimated tax payments. But if you're making a payment with an extension on a Form 4868, that's actually reported here on line 10. Excess Social Security and Tier 1 Railroad Retirement Tax Act. So if you were a railroad employee, you might have some Tier 1 and Tier 2 taxes withheld, and to a certain extent, you can get some of that Tier 1 repaid. Same thing with excess Social Security taxes on your regular W-2 wages, right? If that happened, you might be able to get a refund of those amounts. Form 4136, federal tax refund or credit on fuels, right? So this often happens if you're invested or operate a business and you buy fuel that you pay the tax on, but you use it in off-highway use. So if you paid that tax, but the fuel was ultimately used in, let's say, a lawnmower or a tractor, and it was off-highway, you might be able to get a federal tax credit for the fuel. And so I've got some 4136 videos on that as well. Form 2439, bit of an unusual one, but this is used to report undistributed long-term capital gains from certain types of RICs, right? So RICs are regulated investment companies. So if you got a notice from a RIC that there was some undistributed LT gains, then you might have a 13A inclusion. All right, so I think that pretty much covers it for this Schedule 3. Not a lot of items on here, but I think what's important to note is that when we talk about tax credits, non-refundable credits generally means that the credit can be used to offset your tax liability dollar for dollar, but it will not be able to give you a refund beyond zero. So in other words, if you look at page 2 of your 1040, right, the Schedule 3 credits or amounts from Schedule 3 are reported on line 20, right? And so these amounts could be used to offset any kind of tax that you might have up here, but if your tax has been reduced to zero, then you generally don't get any of the credit. And that's because it is a non-refundable credit, right? So it reduces your tax to zero, but not beyond that. And in contrast, that's different from what are determined to be refundable tax credits. So a refundable tax credit, the two most popular ones are certainly the line 28 item, additional child tax credit from 8812, and the refundable portion of the American Opportunity Tax Credit from Form 8863. And then the earned income credit is also a refundable credit. So those three, I would say, are certainly the more popular ones when we talk about what is a refundable tax credit. All right, so that covers it for this video. I hope that was helpful. Again, have a look at those links below to see more detailed videos on some of these forms. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next one. Thank you.